knock or one howl is real, then man's understanding of primate evolution
would be changed forever.
Join the Catskill Appalachian Research Collective as they delve further into the mysteries of Bigfoot and other paranormal phenomena through the eyes of witnesses, investigators, critics, and skeptics. Join us as we look to discover what lurks from behind tall trees.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to From Behind Tall Trees Ladies Night. I'm Gwen. Then we have with Carey. Tonight we have our friend Matt Arner on.
Hi.
Who we love.
I'll go with this one.
So let's just get into it. Matt, what's been going on, buddy?
Well, we have a lot of stuff going on. So mainly, I mean, I've been kind of complaining to you guys a little bit. My work situation is kind of bad right now. We're understaffed, so I've been putting in a lot of hours, and it's just been, really taking a lot of time that I could be using out in the woods or, going fishing, going hiking, doing my research. But in the end, it's going to pay off. So I'm good with that. But I was saying, I got some upcoming expeditions planned. I've been doing a lot of stuff in my own area here. Really, I have a ton of places throughout Pennsylvania that I've been traveling to. That I know the areas fairly well. I know the people there at each of these different regions, and it's going to be a good summer for research this year.
Good. Can you tell us how long you've been researching? Give us a little bit of background on you.
Wow. Well, it's been a long time. Yeah. In fact, actually, it's funny. I remember sitting at my old house, like back in the 1990s, and like the late 90s, early 2000s, with the BFRO had their website, and PBS had actually at that time they had a pretty comparable website as well. Of course, it was the old-fashioned websites, where you had to, everything was in the certain text and everything. But I would read all the reports. I was particularly interested in the reports coming from Pennsylvania. I didn't really know that much about, some of the stuff that I know now in terms of research. It was more or less just trying to be out in the woods to see if we can capture something. But I was always interested in that. And that goes back even further, from me in childhood. My mom had a sighting. And from that really kind of got everything going. But every couple of years I would, kind of, all right, I'd step back, and, wasn't as exciting as it was because something else was coming up. And, but I still kind of dabbled with it. And then in 2006, I was involved with the Paranormal Club group in my area. And they saw that I really wasn't interested in walking around abandoned houses or, or going into places that, I could risk, falling through a floorboard or getting black mold or, anything like that. So I had told a couple of the people, I said, listen, why don't we go out in the woods and look for Bigfoot? And at this time, things started picking up in the Bigfoot field. This was right before Finding Bigfoot really kind of got big. But there was another website that I was going to that provided a lot of good information for it. And so with that, I started kind of getting more heavily involved, leading expeditions in this area in particular. We do a lot of hunting and fishing up in north central PA, so I would take people up there. And again, we at that point we weren't really as familiar with some of the techniques. We were just kind of, just out there at night, with the camera and a flashlight, seeing if we could get something to holler back at us. And we've had a couple smaller encounters, nothing too amazing. But then we would start hearing from other witnesses, and then it just kind of developed, and I started making friends with people in the PBS, the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society, and I went out to one of their fall outings at Parker Dam State Park. Well, out there, you had all these, top names from the Bigfoot field in the East Coast were there. And there was this group of guys that were there. And I'll tell you what, I don't know why, but I just fit right in with them. And and it's great because to this day we're still friends. And one of the people that was in that group was Sean Forker. And Sean is such an amazing person in the Bigfoot field. And so at that time, he had a very traumatic experience that happened to him the year before in Clearfield County. And we were probably about 20 miles away. So we were going to actually go back to that particular area. And so that night the main group kind of went on their own. They were going up the mountains. They were going on this big night hike and expedition. And me, Sean, and a couple of his friends, we got together and went out to the clearing where he had this experience the year before. So we were out there, and what I did was I set up trail cams, not particularly around the area, but the egress into the where the clearing was. There was only one trail to get in there, and there was a parking lot. So I had one trail cam at the trail. About halfway through, I had one trail cam around where our cars were. So around midnight, we had the group of all the big name Bigfoot people, come out. And by the way, they're the nicest people in the world. But man, I just really gelled with Sean and his crew. So they were out there. They're doing calls. They're talking, having a good time, and then they left. So we had a little bit of a bonfire going. We're sitting around the bonfire, just kind of getting ready to wrap up. It was probably about 1 o'clock in the morning, and we get this whoop that was so loud. And of course, Sean turns to us and he's like, "Oh my God." So we ended up, we checked around the area. We didn't see anything, but that whoop was just so definitive. What I described it as is, and the best way to describe it is if you go to a zoo and you listen to the gibbons monkey, which is a very vocal primate. It was just like that, but man, it sounded like it was coming out of a trombone, for how powerful that was. A gibbons monkey, it's going to sound obviously like it's coming from something a lot smaller. This sounded like it had force. And whatever it was expelling a lot of air when it was making this call. So we ended up checking the area, and then some of the guys were getting a little nervous. So we ended up, it was funny, me and this guy Dustin, who was a Gulf War veteran, he's in the front, I'm in the back. We're like, "Oh, come on, let's go look at the woods," but we ended up, basically covering the 6 and the 12 there and getting the guys out. When I went back to check my trail cameras, now here's the thing is sometimes it's not what you, or it may not be what you find, but what you don't find. And the one thing that I found with the trail cameras is at the time of the call that we got that whoop, the crew, I had them on trail camera leaving 45 minutes before. So unless somebody stuck around, but yet in the trail cam, I have everyone accounted for. So between that time that they left and the time that we left, there was no other person in that area. So that really, that was kind of like the big experience for me. That kind of really piqued it. So during that time, me and Sean would get together, and if he was in this part of the state, we'd do some investigations. If I was up there, I'd give him a call, and but then I kind of, with work and everything, I kind of fell back a little bit, and then just within the last couple of years, I really started, really going hard on the research. Now that I have a little more time, except for this year, now that I have a little more time,
Right.
I could, spend that time in the woods. The one thing is for me, it's, I have a very stressful job, so it's almost therapeutic for me being out
Yeah.
in the
Right.
woods like that. So, um, it's a great environment for me to be in. And at the same point, what I feel I'm doing is I'm trying to further any scientific research
Yeah.
that could be found. So in that time, I had been more just about talking to witnesses, going out. I may have had a voice recorder with me, and I've had them out, and they run out of batteries in so
Mhm.
many hours, so it really doesn't help that lot a lot. But um, and now I've gotten into using thermal, long duration recorders. Cameras, I'm not a big fan of game cameras anymore for doing this, unless they're so well hidden, and basically it's almost at the point where you almost have to trip on it to get the sensor to go, only because of the fact that for some reason they stay away from them. So that is that's where I've kind of grown from. And then we've had some experiences too with you guys, and
Mhm.
and then I had another experience when we were up at the ANF, shortly after that, which
Oh,
was a really really neat experience. So um, I don't know, Gwen, do you want to go in and talk about what happened the night that we were out at that one site that the Andersons took us to?
Yeah, that was a really
which
great
was
night.
Yes,
It
amazing.
was. It
yes,
was amazing. In case
yes.
nobody knows, the three of us actually met on a BFRO expedition last September, and we just all of us kind of just hit it and connected. And so we've actually, I know Carrie has gotten together with Matt a few times, and they've gone investigating. And Matt's come out to where I am, and we've gone investigating. Matt's actually not that far away from me, so it kind of works out. But yeah, then I believe it wasn't it the last night of our investigation.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, we were out there in the middle of that logging road up on that hill,
Yep.
and it was just you, me, and Paul Bogdan, who was on our
Yes.
show last month.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, it was crazy because you could
Hmm.
feel like the atmosphere just completely changed.
Yes.
I remember turning around and looking at you guys. I'm like, do you guys feel that? Because
Yeah.
everything just shifted. Like it was a
Yes.
crazy feeling. But then we heard these footfalls,
Yeah.
and it sounded like somebody was walking, like,
Yep.
and you could hear like the ground. But we all three of us get our thermal cameras up, and we're looking, and we don't see anything.
Yep. Yep. And
Yeah.
the biggest problem at that point is there was so much foliage
Mhm.
where we were. And I thought that there was something behind that one tree, and I started walking towards it. But we didn't, and you don't know if some if they do peek behind the trees.
Mhm.
Allegedly, from what people have said, that they're tree peekers. So it's possible something could have been there. But what happened was, and we didn't know this until after we all got everyone together. There was a bonfire at the main campsite.
Which is where I was at when you guys went up there.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And right before we had our experience, Carrie, did you guys hear anything strange at that point?
We did, actually.
Okay.
We were at the campfire, and what was interesting is we heard something. I can't even describe it. I wanted to say it was a growl of some sort.
Okay.
Right before you guys got on the radio to tell us that you guys also were hearing things too. Um, and Julie was like, "This isn't unusual. This is what happens every time you sit around the campfire." And I was like,
Yes.
"It was." I,
Yep.
Yeah.
I've always believed.
Yep.
However, when things happen to you that are so unexplained, because
Yes.
you've been there when it was daylight and you're trying to figure things out.
Yep.
It was just that moment, and literally, I want to say it was not much more than maybe a couple minutes before you guys called us and said, "This is
Yes.
what's happened to us." And then
Yes.
Steve and Jeff were actually just down below us, and
Yep.
they heard something at the
Yes.
exact same time all three of us had heard it.
Yes. And the one thing is right after the growl, and I try to put everything together. Right after the growl, I heard 2 distinct wood knocks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I heard 1 single wood knock. And then shortly after that, we heard the footfalls literally, right in front of us. And the one thing is that when I talk about like the footfalls, you can listen to see how it does a dog or a deer, or, and when I say a dog,
They're
because
totally
there's a
different.
lot of coyotes up in that area.
Mhm. We heard
Which
lots
one
of
was,
yells that day.
one was caught on camera, but they have smaller foot pads. So when they're going through the woods, they're going to make almost a distinct footfall if they want to be heard. When they are just walking through, it's going to be more of that pat pat pat. This was like something with a large flat foot
Force.
coming through. It was like somebody walking through with boots.
Yeah.
That was literally, like I said, I don't think it was more than 15 or 20 yards away from us. And then it just disappeared. But like I said, the problem with that area was that there was so much vegetation there. But on the plus side, that was good for us to have that experience.
Now we have a question from a
Yes.
from a Facebook user. It says, "Do you feel like you should have seen what was making the footfalls?"
Well, you know what? The problem with that particular spot was that we were on a logging road. And I'm sorry, not a logging road. It was actually a gas road, because there was a gas well.
There was a gas well
there.
right behind us.
So when you have that clearing right in front of our clearing, it was nothing but scrub in front of
On
us.
both sides.
On both
on
sides,
both
yeah.
sides,
So it was, unfortunately, it was very, very tough for us to get through and to see through that vegetation, even with the thermal. And we didn't have, both of us, you had your thermal. It was, and I have a similar type of thermal. They're, basically the plug-in on your phones. Even with a more advanced thermal, I think we may have just gotten the light from it as opposed to seeing a distinct form in front of us. But the one thing is the situation, like the environment there definitely changed. It was it went from where we were sitting there just kind of not really worrying about anything, and then all of a sudden you almost get this like the hair stands up on the back of your neck before you even sense it. So we were talking earlier about pheromones and such, and it could be that something that was coming through there probably was like, hey, what are you doing in my area here? And putting off that that
Those
scent.
scents.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
I know in the moment it was kind of crazy because it was exciting and scary all at the same time.
All at the same time.
These footfalls sounded like you could have just reached out,
yes,
walked maybe 5 feet and just touched whatever it was, and it was insane. I was blown away, completely blown away.
And I'm going to say that the growl we heard was similar.
Yes.
There was 4 or 5 of us sitting around the campfire. We were Julie. There's like 4 or 5 of us because we all split up in our own separate groups.
Yep.
And the growl was so. It's hard to. You can feel it in your chest.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's not in front of you. How does that happen?
And I've had
Julie
that
was
happen
like,
before.
that happens all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've had that happen before, and that was from another BFRO expedition. But it was just something that kind of came, but when there is a call made, you feel it. And like I said, the one thing The one animal that's similar to that is either like lions or elephants. You get that when they make that roar,
Yeah.
when
It's in your
elephants make
chest,
that
like you
noise,
feel it.
you feel it, and it's very similar. I had an experience in the New Jersey Pinelands uh, with the BFRO with Eric Spinner and Brian Spinner, great guys, absolutely love them to death. And I learned so much from them. But we were out. It was me, Brian, and Eric Spinner, Brian Spinner, and Art Mack, and we were out in the New Jersey Pinelands. Well, I wasn't in that Bigfooting mood at that time, like I was all set to go, but I had worked a long week. I was kind of tired. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and these guys are out in the woods. I'm at the little base camp with Art Mack, and we're just sitting there talking, and all of a sudden I hear this Ohio howl, and
Oh, wow.
it sounded from far away, but like you felt it in your chest. So I'm thinking, oh well, they're probably on the other side of the cranberry bog. Well, here they come up the hill and they're like, "Did you guys hear that?" And I'm like, "No," or I mean, I did, but I thought it was you guys. They're like, "No, we were literally like 25, 30 yards away from you, but we felt that like resonate
Yeah.
through your chest." So it is something, and I think again, you have these large mammals that are able to have that vibration come out from their vocalization, that it's probably similar to what we see with Bigfoot.
Mhm.
But going back to our experience up there in the ANF, the one thing is, and I didn't really, and I'll come out and say this because some people know what I do. I'm actually a detective with the police department, so I rely on evidence. The
Mhm.
one thing that we use if we don't have any direct evidence is you saw it, and this is something that you can testify to. The other type of evidence is what we call circumstantial evidence.
Mhm.
So the one thing I like to the one way I got to explain that is, okay, did it rain outside? You didn't see it rain. When you came into the house, it was nice and sunny, but when you came out to your car, your car is covered in raindrops. You left your windows open. Your seat's wet now, and there's leaves on the ground from the force of the raindrops. So circumstantially, you would come to the point that, okay, well, it's an indirect, but it's circumstantial that you put this together and you can formulate that it rained.
Mhm.
So the one thing is that from our experiences, it wasn't just the heavy footfalls. It wasn't just that sensation that we all kind of got. It wasn't just the growl that was heard at the base camp. It wasn't just the wood knocks. You put all that together, and
Mhm.
now you're building a circumstantial case that something did happen, and that's kind of where my experience has lied upon, where I've had these weird things happen all at once. I haven't seen Bigfoot, but
That's
I've
gonna
had
come
these
with the
strange
next question.
experiences that I can't explain.
Right.
Mhm.
And that when we go through and we look at, okay, what could have caused this, there's not a lot of options there
No.
as for anything that we may know that may
No.
have caused what happened to happen. I had another experience that happened up in the ANF again shortly after that one, and that one again was circumstantial. I had the incident at the hunting camp, which we brought Carey and Steve up to, and that was circumstantial. But again,
That
it's
was a
those
cool
type.
place.
That was definitely a cool place, and we're going to be hitting that again soon. So
Call me.
Yeah.
definitely,
Me
definitely, you and
too.
Steve are definitely invited. So, and Gwen, you come up too. We got
Absolutely.
the whole crew up there. So what happened was with the experience I had. I'll go with the hunting camp. I was up there Labor Day weekend, cutting the grass. Now it's there's a gravel road that goes along the mountain, and then there's like this like ATV trail, Jeep trail that takes you down into the camp. It's about 1.5 miles, 2 miles long. I usually park about halfway. Now, when I come into the camp off the gravel road, I'm always cleaning the logs up, and when I do that, that's so I don't, run over any of these logs or boulders with my truck. Because the last thing I want is to have a busted, oil pan or
You're
transmission,
stuck.
because you're stuck and there's no cell phone service. So I'm always cleaning that, whenever I go down, and there's always trees that are down, and I have a chainsaw in the back. I'll take care of that. So I went and did that. I got down to the parking lot that's about halfway down the mountain, take my stuff. I run down, hike down to the cabin. I cut the grass. I take care of everything. And when I'm down there, I'm relaxing. And again, it's Labor Day weekend, so I don't know if there's a lot of people out there. There is a trail, a hiking trail, popular hiking trail that goes through there, but there was no cars up there. So I'm on my way back. Excuse me. And I heard what I thought was people talking. So I'm like, all right, maybe somebody's out on the trail. Well, then right after that, I heard 2 wood knocks.
Oh, wow.
So now I'm starting to kind of, all right, something might be going on up here. So then I get up to where my truck was. I decide to sit, and before I got to my truck, I got such a really, just an awful smell from something, and it was just a quick boom. It was like in and out, that it was just a really bad smell. Excuse me, I gotta get some water here. So anyways, I'm like, all right, so I sit there, I do a couple wood knocks, do a couple whoops, nothing. And I'm like, all right, it was probably nothing. So here I'm I'm driving back up to the trail, to the gravel road. And when I get about halfway up, there is like a 4-foot log across the road. And it's probably about, I would say, at least 8 inches in diameter. When I looked at it, there was no moisture underneath. So it wasn't something that I missed, because you would see the moisture underneath from the dew. And it did not match any of the other trees that were out there. So I'm like, okay, that was pretty weird. Now, do I chalk that up to a Bigfoot, or do I chalk that up to a bunch of just unusual circumstances?
Right.
I don't know. But because I didn't see anything. But it was just kind of weird things like that. So, but I'll tell you guys about the other story here after I get my next drink of water here. So,
well, for everybody just joining us, we want to welcome you to From Behind Tall Trees Lady Night with Gwen and Carey. We have our friend Matt Arner on, who has researched with us before and has been researching for quite a while. If anybody has a question, just put it in the comments and we'll get to it as we go through the show. We do have one. Has anybody ever seen a Bigfoot doing tree knocks? I know I personally have not.
I actually heard my first tree knock literally on that trip we did.
Oh, wow.
I'll tell you what.
My skin kind of lifted, and I was so fascinated and so in awe. I've always believed, but man, when I heard that first tree knock, and Paul Bogdan looked at me and goes, "Yeah, you heard it." And I was like, "I did."
Yeah.
I had to have confirmation. I didn't say a thing because I was just surprised.
I am one of these people, and I'm probably in the minority with this, but I do not think that tree knocks are what people actually think they are. I don't think that you have a Bigfoot sitting around, with a Louisville Slugger going up against dead trees all the time. However, I did see some interesting videos about gorillas in Africa, and what they do is the females of the troop will actually clap.
Yep.
And when they see something coming in. Now, again, if you have, our hands are like this, but if you have hands that are like twice the size, that are probably, as tough as, a baseball catcher's mitt, and they're making that motion, it may sound like a wood knock. So that's something that I've always been open to, that maybe these wood knocks are actually, something like a, like a clap rather than, an actual, somebody actually hitting a tree.
Mhm.
But again, it's
Right.
all up for discussion. So
Well, Jane
uh,
Goodall said the same thing, said that
yeah,
there's like they do the same thing as a warning, sometimes a warning system,
yes,
sometimes, and their claps are distinct. So there's a little distinction in the way that they do claps with their hands,
yes,
as pertaining to whatever situation.
correct,
And I
correct.
agree
So
with you. I think that that's exactly how they do it. We unfortunately can't imitate that, so we get some knockers and do the same thing.
yes, yes, which is actually it makes a similar sound. So it really does, and it really does come forward, and you do get responses sometimes. So
We
Mhm.
do.
which is really just an interesting phenomena. So anyways, I'll tell you what happened
Yes.
after we did our expedition up there. We had a secondary expedition. It
Mhm.
wasn't. It was kind of okay. We're just all going to kind of get together and go
Was
back
this in
out to these
November, I
spots.
think?
Yes,
Yeah?
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I missed that
So
one.
I didn't get to go.
that
I
was.
was working.
Oh no! Well, we went back to our original spot. We did not get
Mhm.
a lot of activity there, so I was looking around at spots, and again, I seem to kind of have a focus on habitat,
Yeah.
terrain, proximity to people, and I found an area which I thought looked pretty promising. Now during the day, it was actually that day was a particular busy day for hunting because it was the end of archery season. I believe it was either the beginning or the end of archery season. So
Something like that.
there was a lot of people out around the woods. But I found a spot, and I said, "Okay, there's no cars here. It was along a creek. I'm going to go on and take a walk here." And this was on Saturday. So here I'm walking up the trail, and up on the trail I find a like 16-inch footprint, and there's toes.
Wow.
Yeah, and from where I saw it, it seemed to have went well, let me do it this way. It went diagonal across the trail. So as it did that, that was the only track I was able to find. And I looked all over. I couldn't find another track, but you could see that there was definitely a game trail there. It did not look like a double step from a bear, because of the way that the toe was. If we were going to say that it came from the right foot of whatever made it. It just did not, and also the toes were very they were very flat. There was no angling, as if
Mm.
when people wear shoes, your toes will actually angle like this.
Right.
It was pretty much straight across, but you could see where the toe impressions were. Unfortunately, it was, I don't know, like 4:30, 5 o'clock on a Saturday, and I messaged. Oh, by the time I got to message Paul, there was no one that had any dental stone with them.
Oh.
So, and then we were getting a rainstorm that night. So I tried my best to cover it up. I marked it. Went back. And we did our nighttime investigation. Didn't really have a lot going on because it was raining, foggy that night. Next morning, I wake up. I go to Kane, the town of Kane. There's a hardware store. Bought some plaster. Bought a bucket. Did the whole 9 yards. So I go up to where this footprint was, and the footprint had a little bit of degradation from the rain. So I'm like, all right, well, you know what? I'm gonna do what they always say: when in doubt, just cast it. What's it gonna hurt? So
Yep.
I go up there, and again, there's nobody in the woods because this was on a Sunday. There's no Sunday hunting on that particular weekend. So I go up, I cast it. I walk down to my truck. Now, again, I'm in a place. I'm about 5 miles from the highway, from the closest road. It's a 2-lane highway. I'm sitting down there. There's no cell phone service. There's no one around. So the only thing I had, I'm kind of a nerd, So like I'm looking over the maps. I'm really like a big geography person, so I want to know, like, all right, where am I going? What places around here and everything. So as I'm doing that, I'm in the back of my truck.
You used your lizard map, didn't you?
I did. You know what? I don't know if I could shill for them, but if you're in the Pennsylvania, West Virginia area, purple
How
lizard
did I
maps.
know?
Yes,
How did I know?
yes, purple lizard maps. I completely endorse them. So, and I'm doing that for free. They're not sending me any maps or stickers in return. So, anyways, I'm going
no
through
swag for you.
Exactly. So I'm going through the map, and all of a sudden, I hear something shaking, and I'm looking down, and there was a creek, and on the other side of the creek there was a drainage ditch that came down from the mountain. And along the drainage ditch, I see this small tree, just shaking. And I'm like, okay, first, there's nothing around it. I don't see a deer. I don't see a squirrel. But something is shaking this so violently that the leaves were coming down like this. It looked almost like, for how violently it was shaking, it looked like from the 1990s, where people went into those phone booth things and the dollar bills would fly up. It looked something like that, except everything was coming down. So at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm out in the middle of nowhere. I have nothing, to protect me in terms of, anything, any weapons or anything like that. I, have a cast that's about, 100 yards up the trail, and there's no cell phone service, so there's no one really here to, I could call. So what did I do? I started talking to it, and the one thing that it kills me to this day is, before I did that, I probably should have started videotaping. I didn't videotape until after the talk, but I started talking. I started saying, listen, I'm only here not to harm you. Just, I found some evidence up here. I don't mean to, push into your territory. You could do whatever you want after I leave. But yeah, I'm definitely not here to hurt you. So, no bluff charges, nothing like that. I'm cool with that,
You didn't ask it to come out and say hi?
At that point, the hair was definitely staying on the back of my neck. So I'm
I
like,
know that feeling.
Yes. So it stopped. And then I started recording, and I'm sitting there, basically recounting what happened. So I go back up and I collect really fast. I collect the print. I didn't even get to clean it off up there. I just basically dug it from the ground, put it in the bucket, and said, I'm getting out of here. Well, here, when I went around the corner where that tree was, I said, you know what? I want to stop and see this area. The drainage ditch where this was adjacent to was at least 6 or 7 feet deep. And if you were standing in the middle of that drainage ditch and shaking the tree from the bottom, you could, potentially be hidden. So I don't know, and again, when I went from there and I drove the 5 miles back to the highway, there was not one person, there was not one car there. So, again, a circumstantial encounter, but it was something that really, I said, okay, this raises a lot of questions. Could it have been a deer? It could have. Very well, it could have been a deer. Could it have been a squirrel that I didn't see? I don't think so.
I don't know if shaking it like that is
because the shaking was too violent. But it would be similar to a deer because it was during the rut.
Right.
But man, I would have seen that deer, at some point,
Yeah.
and I just did not see it at all. So, that's like I said, it raises questions, and those type of questions are what brings me back out in the woods all the time. So,
because you didn't have an answer for it, you don't know what's going on.
Correct.
Right.
That's what piques all of our interest. I swear, it just brings us right back to the woods.
Absolutely. So, yeah. So, anyways, that was definitely a very interesting encounter that I had, and but it's funny because I do spend, even before I was really into doing the Bigfoot research, I would spend a lot of time out in the woods. One of my hobbies is I like to fly fish on these what they call wilderness trout streams in Pennsylvania, which are basically streams that there's no road access to. You have to hike in. You're fishing for little native brookies, and I've been out there a few times, and I remember hearing wood knocks. I remember, having that smell that I smelled in Clinton County at the hunting camp. I remember having that smell, like, come through. I'm like, what the heck is this? And so I'm thinking back on all those times, and it's pretty interesting that I may have had encounters, but And of course, the one thing is that they're all super exciting and they're really cool. But then I hear from people that had encounters sometimes, especially Bigfoot researchers. And this is one thing that I kind of feel bad about is a lot of times they're let down, like
Yeah.
Right.
I was one of the people that I really do like read his books is Russell Jones, the Bigfoot doc,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
with the Appalachian Bigfoot. And the best way he described it is, he could be out in the woods and, you kind of like look back and you see somebody hiking, and like literally like, like a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes later, you sit there and thinking, okay, there's no trail. That person was dressed in all black. I may not have seen a face or, but
Yeah.
why is this person like, walking up like,
A cliff like
800-foot
this.
ravine, and it's like, it's one of those things where, you have stuff like that happen, and it may be more exciting, for if I wasn't as kind of in depth with it, but then on the other hand, you have my friend Sean Forker, who again, a great Bigfoot researcher, wonderful friend of mine, and his
Yeah, I had the
encounter was
pleasures of meeting him last month.
yes,
Out
yes,
did-
the fork,
and I
And I
think
did
him and
too
I-
when we went to
yeah.
that place.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Gary got to meet Sean.
He was cool. And I got to meet
He
his
is
son. And we were
Yes.
at that place that I was telling you about, Gwen, that I said it was the cabin.
Yes.
And I
Okay.
said, Gwen, I said, I swear it has a feeling to it.
Yes.
It's a very interesting place. And I was
Yes.
trying to describe it to Gwen, but
Yes.
I was like, we definitely need to take Gwen back out there.
Oh,
Mhm.
absolutely, absolutely.
I am
Well,
in.
there's a funny story about the cabin. It'll only take a few seconds, but
Go ahead.
with the
You're good.
cabin, the wife of
Yep.
the person that was up at the cabin, apparently every weekend they were going up and they were doing their journal entries, and then they started getting less and less, and then what we found out is that the wife completely stopped going. So the cabin was built like, really like in the turn of the century. It was used as a logging cabin in Clinton County, and one of the most it is one of the most remote cabins in the state. Um, but there was a lot of people that went went and passed through those doors. So I was automatically thinking, okay, well, maybe there was paranormal,
Mhm.
maybe it was there was another Bigfoot encounter. Well, here it wasn't that, and I found out the reason why in a kind of in a bad way is what happened was she went up there one night and they were sleeping upstairs in the second floor, and she went in her sleeping bag, and apparently there was a family of mice that were in there, and this place is infested with mice
Oh, I can
throughout the
see
whole
that.
cabin. So yeah, it was funny. The
It
first
does
time
have an eerie look to it, though. It really does, but it's
does.
cool.
Oh,
Like the whole
absolutely.
feeling about the area is very cool.
Absolutely, yeah, and even that particular hollow, it kind of gives off just a
Yep.
strange vibe, when you're going
Mm.
through there. So yeah, we'll definitely have you come up there, but
I think we need
um,
to go camping out there for the night or something like that. That'd be a lot
yeah,
of fun.
I'm
oh,
in.
absolutely, absolutely.
I'm
But going
totally
back
in.
yes, but going back to Sean's encounter was really a
Impressive.
traumatic, yes, where they had seen something in that clearing that we were at, going between the trees and just outside of the light. And then he's in the tent and he sees a gigantic hand press into the side of the
Wow.
tent. And that changed him.
Yeah.
And it took him a long time to, to get, through that. And amazingly now, I mean, he is one of the most hardcore researchers, I know. And he's like I said, just a great guy, but he got over that. A lot of people sometimes they have these traumatic experiences that happen, when they do have an experience.
Mhm.
And what I like to do is, I mean, I do this from my own work, I work with a lot of tragic and traumatic experiences. So
Mhm.
when I talk to a witness and somebody says, I don't want to go into the woods anymore. And the one thing I try to point out to them is, well, you're still here. There was no harm done to you.
Right.
Mhm.
it's very few. It's more researchers that I talk to that get bluff charged. Witnesses so much. It's more the shock of seeing something that they can't explain.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the way that person or that animal, that person, that being looks to them is something that instills fear,
Yeah.
that something bad may happen. But I always say, they spend all this time trying to get away from you or trying to hide from you. If they really want to do harm, they would make themselves known. They would make themselves known more. You just happened to catch an encounter when something was crossing the road, or you were on a hiking trail and something was in the bushes, peeking behind a tree, and you see a face, that doesn't quite look human.
The only
Things like that.
only other ones that I've heard that have been bluff charged or rocks thrown at are hunters.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that's the fact because they don't want you in their woods. They don't want you with
Correct.
guns. They don't want you
Correct.
around anything like that. So
Yes. Yeah.
and
That
they
seems
have
to be.
some of this scarier type encounters.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've known people that have literally stayed in a tree stand and, tried to either make a phone call or yell because something was, just below the tree or something was circling them. And, an encounter like that, you have a person that has a weapon, whether it's a bow for archery season,
Exactly.
or a rifle for regular deer season. And, they might be sitting there saying, "Hey, this is my spot too,"
Yeah.
and you're in my hunting spot here. So that's always interesting to hear about, some of these encounters. But really, with the bluff charges, I mostly just hear that from, again, people like ourselves
Mhm.
are going out there in the middle of the night, in these areas where, again, it may be an area that they have for hunting. It may be an area where
Yeah.
they
Right.
may be resting, and they don't want us in there, and
Right.
or again, as Carrie said, with the hunters as well. So
Now we do have a couple of questions here by one gentleman, and I'm not going to pretend to know how to say his name.
Sure.
I do not want to butcher it at all. But he's asking, what is a Class A encounter, and what scales are we using for Bigfoot? I'm not sure what he means by scales, but what scales are used for Bigfoot?
I mean, with the Class A encounter, that's going to be something where you actually see the creature. It's going to be, what we talk about with direct evidence. You actually see this. The Class B would be your vocalizations,
Mhm.
and then it goes down from there. But your Class A is going to be when you actually have, basically, you can. There's a little discrepancy sometimes where somebody sees something in black and is crossing through. Is that a Class A encounter? Maybe, but again, when you're out there, you see something, clearly on 2 feet crossing in front of you, in front of on a logging road, that would definitely qualify as a Class A encounter. And you mentioned about the shades. I don't know, or what scales are used for Bigfoot. I don't know if that's in terms of size. I know in Pennsylvania, in basically eastern United States, they're not quite, we're not talking about 10-foot, 12-foot creatures. We're talking about creatures that may be anywhere from 5.5 feet to 7.5 feet. I know in the we talked about the apple pickers, or the alba witches. They're much smaller. Now, could they be young? I don't know. But could they be a distinct, different species? You don't know. But obviously, the creatures that are up in Alaska, from the sightings, they're talking about creatures that they see that are 10, 12, even taller. Once you get into that area. I just took a zoology class through school, and I can't remember the exact term it is, but like Cliff Brackman always talks about it, it's actually in terms of mammals are bigger the farther away from the equator.
Yes.
So
anything in
could be a
Alaska
possibility.
that eats salmon is going to be
Yes.
10 times the size of anything else.
Absolutely. So when they talk about something that may be 10 or 12 feet high, and it's in the Pacific Northwest or anywhere up in Alaska, I could definitely see that. For Pennsylvania, it's mostly most of the encounters are if it's going to be not in Albawitch, but a true Bigfoot, it's going to be between 5.5 to 7 feet, 7.5 feet tall.
Yeah.
I hope that answered.
It's really close.
Yeah.
I have to say, going back to smells, the other night I was laying in bed and we have our windows open because it's nice out.
Yes.
And something awful came and we could smell it. And God love my husband who puts up with my crazy, thought, because I started whistling because I've had whistling in my front yard. So I started whistling and my husband just looks at me and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm going to see if it answers me."
Yeah, absolutely.
It was weird because I bet you I smelled it for a good 5 minutes and then it was gone. But it was horrible.
Yes. Yeah. My the smell encounter I had was definitely something you remember, but it was and I've been in very bad situations. I've smelled really just when it comes to human remains, pretty much like the whole scale through my job, but this was something different. This was not like a not like a decaying
mix.
It was a mix. Yes.
Of like a skunk / like dead something, and it's mixed and it's it's really a mix. Like your nostrils will get a smell and you're just like, there's nothing you've ever smelled before.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
It's weird.
So so anyways, with that, it's with the smells, I don't know what they could be, but I'll go into a little bit too about my research, about some of the stuff I do. I'm more of a passive researcher. I'm not out there. I think it's fun when we do the BFRO expeditions or other expeditions, when we get out in the woods and we're doing call blasting and we're doing some wood knocks and everything. But more of mine is just to be out there, observe. That's the biggest thing, is observation. Rather, because if there is something that's coming through, you're going to hear it. What we heard with the footfalls, we weren't really doing any calls at that time. We were more or less just kind of sitting there, hanging out and enjoying.
And we were sitting around a campfire, just chit chatting, just doing whatever. We weren't even doing anything.
Yes, and it really, I mean, any of the encounters I've really had have kind of been like, I wasn't actively looking, at the time. I wasn't actively Bigfooting. It was more, other than when we had the PBS. It really, at that point, we were done and we were just sitting around the campfire, just waiting for it to die down, just having a good time, and so it's experiences like that may prompt some sort of encounter, or it may lessen their guard, so that they may want to come in and check out who's there. So that's something that, again, in my own research, I try not to go out there and actually, do a lot of stuff. And then when it was funny because we had a conversation with one of the guys that we were out there with, and when we were out at your place, Gwen, and we were talking about the rock throwing, and and we were talking about should we throw rocks back? And my thing is that you have something that really could throw a rock in the dark at a very high rate of speed and literally whiz right past your head. So it knows it's aiming pretty good, not to hit you, but maybe to scare you. I don't want to get into a rock throwing contest with something like that. So
have you ever tried to pick up the rock that they actually threw? Most of those rocks are heavier than I could even
Yes.
possibly want to try to
Yes.
throw back.
Right.
Yes.
We're not
I've never been in a
Yeah.
rock throwing contest with
Yes.
Bigfoot, but
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that I would lose horribly.
Yes.
I would lose
Yes.
horribly.
Yes.
Yes.
In fact, I always said, it's funny because you go on Amazon, there's all sorts of like Bigfoot fiction. And if I was going to make a Bigfoot fiction book or a movie, I would take it where we discover Bigfoot. And instead of taking them to a museum, some Major League Baseball pro scout finds him and makes him like the world's greatest pitcher, of all time.
That would be awesome.
that would be. So
We would be an undefeated team.
Yes. So, and if they're not using their hands to do wood knives and they're actually using a wood stick, I'm sure that they would probably have a pretty good batting average as well. But
I agree with you.
Yes. But yeah, I do try to be a little more on the passive side when I'm doing my investigations. I do scout a lot. I think 90% of my investigations, excuse me, are spent when I'm actually researching the area. Again, I try to find places with hollows that are inaccessible. I do try to find areas with high ridge tops. I try to find those places where if something was trying not to be found, and it may take a while to get there, I want to go to a place like that, and just see if there's anything there. And again, there may be times that it may prompt me to be a little more active in doing my research. So I may do some wood knocks. I may do a whoop. I may do whistling. I do whistle a lot in the woods. And the one thing is that when we do those vocalizations, when those patterns, it's not aggressive. It's when you go up and do the Ohio howl now. Okay, that's something that's definitely a little more aggressive. So if you do something more on the passive side, I think it's really something that could prompt something to give you activity back.
Have you ever tried gift giving?
I have not.
Okay.
I'm not. Well, of course, I'm kind of one of these.
Well,
old
there's a
school
difference,
people.
like with the gift giving and food and stuff like that. But
Yes, and I'm kind of one of these like people. I know, like some people talk about leaving little trinkets or, maybe not just food, but other little things out there that they might have interest in. I think at that point, if you can get something into an area like that, I would probably try to set up maybe not a game camera, but like a hidden video camera, something that could go, excuse me, long distance, so that or long
it'll
duration.
malfunction on you.
Yeah. Well, that's another funny story. I had a friend of mine who had activity not that far from my house, and we had a fresh deer kill that was there. The hunter harvested the deer, just took the back straps, left basically most of the carcass there, including the innards. So what happened was we put a game camera, and we had it hidden really well, basically within 20 yards of where this carcass was. Well, when we were doing this, when we went to go back to get it, which was about 6 weeks later, it only took about 50 pictures, which were mostly crows. As soon as you got into night, the battery died. So with that amount of pictures and with that type of camera, that should have stayed on a lot longer.
Oh, yeah.
So that was really just a bizarre situation. So, and there's been a lot of activity in that particular area. So I'll get you guys down there too as well.
Yeah. I was going to suggest that.
Yeah, definitely. It wouldn't be that far of a drive, definitely for Gwen, and for you guys, it's literally right off Interstate 80. So
right.
Yep.
I'm there.
So
Gwen normally asks a question. Are you going to ask it?
What's that?
Kill or no kill?
Oh, kill or no kill.
Okay. So, anyways,
I don't want to steal her thunder, but
I'm in a weird spot.
It's an important question. It's an important question.
It is. I'm in a weird spot with that because really, I prefer no kill, but we do need a body, However, I would not kill one with a gun. But I told my wife, if we're driving in either my truck or her car, and we see a Bigfoot crossing the road, try to hit it. Maybe we'll get some hair off of it.
I want to see that report going to the insurance company.
Yes.
I want to hear what the insurance company guy says when you.
Me too.
Yeah. So yeah. Am I a kill or no kill? I'm more no kill, but would I hurt it? Hey, you know what? If I saw a Bigfoot sleeping, and not that I would do this, but if I had like a set of tweezers, man, I'd go up and grab some hair and run.
But you're gonna make him up.
You better have some serious running shoes on.
Absolutely. I'll bring my friend that doesn't run as fast as me, and then we'll go and do that. But the one thing is I remember, and there was a lot of controversy about this particular project, whether it was actually hoaxed or not. But I believe it was with the Erickson project many years ago. What they had done, and actually, like I said, kill or no kill. This is probably, if you did have something going on, this is probably how I would do it. Is they were gifting, and they were gifting pancakes. So what they did was they had something that was coming up. They believed it was a mother and a juvenile that were coming up taking the pancakes. Well, what they did, and this, if this wasn't hoax, I think that this would be a great thing to do. It was they took broken glass and they put it on the plate and they glued it to the plate. So when something would come over and grab the pancake from the plate, it would cut its hand. And from that, supposedly they got blood, which they sent to Dr. Meldrum. But again, I'm not going to go there. But that may be an opportunity where you're not killing the creature. You may hurt it, okay, but okay, it's got a cut on its hand. I'm all right with that, but it's a lot better than actually, taking one out with a 50 cal or a 308 or something. So I would rather do something like that.
F350
yes. Yes. But again, when I'm out with my wife and when we're in the remote areas of Elk County, and I say, listen, if we see a Bigfoot,
I'm gonna have to tell my husband this now because we go out all the time.
I'm gonna drive towards it because I want to try to get a hair sample. So that's pretty much where. And again, it's more. I know that again we need to have a body, but on the other hand, I'm I don't have the heart to do something like that. For a creature that I've whether it exists or not, we're going to find out. But for how much time I put into it and how much I've learned about it, it would just make me feel bad to do something like that.
So a common question is,
yes.
I get asked all the time, well, if Bigfoot is real, why don't we, why hasn't somebody hit them with their car? Why hasn't someone shot one while they're hunting? So that leads to, I know personally at my residence, I mean, I've got some weird activity. I actually saw a Bigfoot not far from my house, but we've had a lot of strange activity that I can't account for anything else.
Yes.
So what do you say to the paranormal versus real flesh and blood people out there? Because you're either on one side of the fence or the other. It seems like in this issue.
Yeah, no, I'm actually an associate member of the North American Wood Ape Conservancy. I do wholeheartedly believe that this is a real flesh and blood creature. Where it comes from, I don't know, but there's actually been a lot of research lately in regards to basically a splinter of the Homo sapien human species that may be living in some of these South Asian islands. So I really, I think that there's possibly a sustainable population, that there continues to be sightings. There's been sightings, recorded sightings basically from the 1600s, from European explorers, as well as all the tradition that goes back with the Native American tribes that go back, from when they first crossed the land bridge. So with something like that, I do think that it's a flesh and blood creature. Could there be, something that we don't know, in terms of biology that they have the capability of doing? That's always a possibility. You can't rule out that, it can't, clone because of the way the hair is,
Right.
where it may look basically invisible at some point. And again, that could be all done from basically hollow hair fibers and the way that the light is refracted from that.
Right.
In terms of the bluff charge, and now again, there's more of a explanation for that from any other large creatures, such as the lion or the elephant. If they come at you, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel that zap.
Yeah.
And so that's something that does occur in nature. So that is something that I think is there's enough out there that it leans me more towards it's a flesh and blood creature. Whether it's an ape or just an offshoot species of human, I'm not that sure yet. So, yeah.
Well, speaking of Brian Spinner, you mentioned him earlier.
Yes.
He is actually going to be on From Behind Tall Trees Wednesday the 25th with Mike Lucci. So that should be an interesting show.
Yes. Yeah. Now, Brian is an awesome guy. And again, I met him first time at the New Jersey Pinelands, and then he was also at the Southeast PA BFRO expedition. Just a wonderful person, and he has some interesting areas and some interesting experiences I had up in upstate New York. So that should actually be a great show. Yeah. And like I said, Brian is him and Eric. And now they have the same last name, but they're not related. Although they call each other the brothers from another mother. So, but they're really they have been two big mentors for me in doing my research, especially over the last few years. So Brian is awesome. Yeah. And again, there's a lot of people that like in the field. Again, Sean Forker is he has just been so great to work with, and he's been a big mentor for me. And Eric Altman, he's kind of the original, from him and Stan Gordon. So
I'm very sorry I didn't get to meet Eric at Salt.
I know.
I really wanted to meet him, and I didn't get the chance. So hopefully, somewhere along the lines here.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's amazing, and what people don't think, or what people, when they think of Bigfoot, they generally think of the Pacific Northwest, and they're generally thinking about some of the other researchers that are out in that area. But we're really blessed to have people like Eric, Sean, Spinners, the Spinners, Nate Moyer from BFRO. Great, he is another one. Just an awesome guy. And
a lot on the East Coast that people don't realize.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
And then plus up in New York, you got Steve Coles. You have Russ Jones down in West Virginia, Ohio. There's just so many awesome investigators and researchers, that really, I look up to, and I do learn a lot from them, and
hopefully one day some people will learn a lot from us too.
Absolutely. That's why we're doing
they
this.
already are, girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're trying. We just want to educate people and want to make sure that people understand and get to ask questions all the time, and turn some people who are not so much believers into into wanting to get out there and do your own research. We encourage everybody to do that.
Absolutely. And again, My research style is more passive. Anyone
Yeah.
could do it,
Yeah.
just going out in the woods and going for a
Yep.
hike. Now, all right, let me go into the other thing too, that we were talking about before the show is
Yeah.
if you're going to go out out in the woods, especially now,
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time out in the woods. I'm very skilled with navigation, very skilled with survival. But the one thing
Mhm.
is that I will not go out in the woods basically between now and November without treating my clothes with permethrin,
Yeah.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
which is because right now there are some diseases coming from ticks that are really, really bad.
Horrible.
Mhm.
So treating your clothes, is it something that the deer will smell or anything else will smell? Not really. It doesn't give off, once it dries, it doesn't really give off that odor.
Right.
But it is really effective for keeping ticks and at least the ticks away from you. Are you still going to
Yeah.
get bitten by gnats? Yeah, you probably still, but at least you're not getting those creepy crawly ticks crawling
Don't
around you.
spray it on
Right.
your skin.
Yes,
Spray it on your
yes,
clothes.
yes,
So
yes,
we do have a question from a
yes.
Facebook user who says, so he wants to know from me and Carrie if we're on the paranormal or the physical creature camp when it comes to Bigfoot. I know for me, I actually saw one. So for me, I mean, I believe that they're there. I have just had so many weird, unexplained things happening. That I'm just not sure. I'm really on the fence of the whole thing. I need and want more proof. Like that's my whole thing. That's why I started. I mean, from the minute I saw the big guy, I haven't been able to get him out of my brain. So I'm, always looking for whatever the proof is. I could go either way, but everything I've been encountering really pushes me towards the paranormal side, but I need the proof. I need more proof.
I will say for the first probably 20 years, and I didn't really get to investigate very much because I lived in Alaska on an island, and but everything I read, everything I did, I totally believed they were ape-like. I believed they were physical. I believed they were here. They were hiding. They didn't want to be seen
Mhm.
by you. I mean, but I will say with some of the encounters that I've had, uh, and not being able to physically see something when I hear something makes me
Right.
believe that there could be something
Right.
um, more to the situation. Um, are they good at cloaking? Are they good at? I'm not 100%. I'm where Gwen is pretty much, and I feel like I need to be out there more. I need more answers, and I need to see for
Yep.
myself really what the answer is. Um, I think they could be a bit of both. I mean, why can't they be? They're again not. I mean, if I see something that just totally disappears, then I have my answer. Like,
Yep,
but I
yep.
guess I got to get out there more.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And
So
like I said, oh,
go ahead.
go ahead,
No,
Gwen.
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say the big thing is we're not going to know unless you're actually out there, and
Exactly.
just being out in the woods again for me it really helps me, with getting through the stress from the type of line of work I do.
Right.
Um, do I get to go bigfooting too? Absolutely. So,
It's like the
but
best of both worlds.
yes, yes.
Right. Right.
But like even during this past weekend, I did a lot of walking around the woods, and again, it's just being out there, and not only that, but you're also learning about the world itself. You're learning about the different flora and fauna
Mhm.
in your
Yeah.
particular research area. You get to
Yep.
really be familiar with it.
You're honing your own skills of what
Mhm.
Absolutely,
noises and everything is out there. And I will tell you, it's totally different what the noises you hear during the day versus what you hear
yes,
at night.
yes,
Oh, absolutely.
absolutely,
I completely
yeah,
agree. I
yeah,
completely agree. Yep.
yes.
Yep. Yep.
So, but yeah, my
The
biggest thing
CAR,
to
the CRA, the CARC, actually, we have our own research team. It's Mike Lucci, Chuck Larson, myself, Sean Wagner, Brendan Brown, and they're actually all coming here on the first weekend of June to investigate the crazy wild things going on around my house. And I think you actually might be coming.
There's
to,
a possibility I might
Yep.
be able to come out.
And
So
maybe Carrie.
I'm trying. I have a daughter who's graduating that Friday, so if we can try to get some things rolling, we definitely will. But we can't miss graduation. I mean, that's I mean, come on. Just last one.
Graduation.
Time for me to come to your house and celebrate.
Yeah. I know if you're talking about the weekend of like the 3rd and the 4th, the 4th I have something in the morning, but after that, like, in the afternoon, I can definitely make my way over. So,
well, what the good part about that weekend is going to be, I after a year and a half, I finally saw the farmer in the field.
That's the best. Yes.
He's never been out there when I'm home. So I almost wrecked my car. Like, oh my God, there he is.
Don't do that. There was no Bigfoot in front of you.
I know.
Goodness.
When I talk about my Bigfoot experiences, everybody laughs. I'm sure you guys get the same thing. Everybody's like, ha ha ha. They all laugh. They think you're crazy. But this poor kid, I'm telling you, he was maybe in his 30s. And I told him he was going to think I was crazy. And he smiled. And when I said that I saw a Bigfoot in the field, he did smile, but he didn't laugh, because then he proceeded to tell me that he's had 2 encounters with chupacabras in the area. Yeah. And I was like, get the hell out of here. But but he's had lots of experiences. Unfortunately, he doesn't own the property. He just rents it and he farms it. But he finally was able to give me contact information. So we have that. So Friday, I'm going to that farm and talking to that man. Apparently he owns like half the mountainside that we want to be on. And so I'll have a lot more coverage.
Get permission at the same time to possibly go check it out check out his part too. That would be fabulous.
I'm going to go and introduce myself, pass him my business card, ask him if he's had any crazy encounters. The kid said that they've all had really weird, strange things that they've had happen to them out in the woods and in the fields. So, we could have a massive research area by Friday.
so what I was explaining to Gwen when she was discussing this with me, and for Carey and Steve, you coming from Alaska, I don't know if this would be part of the culture up there, but for Pennsylvania specifically, if you're going to a farmer and you want to hunt their property, you want to access their property, you always have to have some sort of gift, so generally you say, hey, listen, can we use this property? Next time I come down, or if I find anything, I'll bring you a plate of cookies, or, like something like that. They really do appreciate that. Now it goes into another thing too, is I do a lot of hunting. So what I do, and I didn't really mention this to Gwen, but if I was in that situation, I'd say, listen, for permission to use your property, I'll come out in the summertime and, take care of the groundhog problem, because groundhogs are really bad for farmers.
Yeah.
And they're always looking for, groundhogs, coyotes, any sort of varmints like that. They're always more than welcome to allow somebody out there, which that kind of gets your foot in the door. You're also helping them out. And you never know, at some point, a lot of, I know Pennsylvania Dutch culture, and a lot of guys just don't say a whole lot of stuff, but once they warm up to you, they may have some experiences themselves that they may want to talk about.
We give the gift of fish everywhere we go in Alaska. It's fish, free fish,
absolutely,
free salmon everywhere, halibut. Yep.
Do you think he'd be feel funny if I took him like some salmon here? Had some salmon.
Oh, maybe. Well, you know what? There's that salmon place that's in Bloomsburg.
I think we still have some halibut in their freezer, and trust me, not many people get halibut anymore.
Exactly. Exactly. So that may be a good way to get your foot in the door. Is say, hey, listen, we just want to go hike the mountain and do some of this. It's not like super weird. We just want to go out and explore, and in exchange, hey, you know what? We'll get you. We'll I'll bake you a pie, or something like that. Like that actually goes a long way when it comes to gaining access to properties like that.
Right.
Or even
Always be
finding out if
nice.
he has current activity and if it
Yep.
does pick up or anything, if and when we, get
Yes.
to go and find out if anything. So,
Yes.
yeah, I agree with you. Building relationships is
Yep.
always the best way to go.
Absolutely. And the one thing is, and I really didn't even go into this a whole lot, is I have a good relationship with people in the Amish community in Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
And a lot of it is like that, where, you go out and you say, hey, listen, if you do this, I can offer this. It's always a barter type system, and within their culture. And a lot of times, they're sometimes reserved about talking to people like us, which they call us English.
Mhm.
But sometimes, if you could build that trust with them, I've had people in a particular area that we were talking about near Bald Eagle State Forest, where they said, "Hey, listen, we have seen something, and we can't let the bishop know about it. We can't, really tell people in our families because it violates, some of their commandments and some of their beliefs." But they said, "Yeah, we did see something that we don't know what it was." And in that particular area, it has some historical activity. So being able to build relationships like that, not just with farmers, but maybe with the Amish who are outside all the time,
Mhm.
really pays a lot of dividends.
And as my
So-
husband liked to just remind me that in Alaska, and he's 100% correct, but we haven't
Yep.
gone up in a while. In order to actually get on any land in Alaska, it's all native. So
Yes.
we have to make sure that you have to get permission from usually the tribal chief or anything else
Yes.
like that. And native property in Alaska is actually extremely hard to get onto.
Wow.
Most places that have Bigfoot encounters, or Bigfoot stories, or
Yep.
however you want to word it, is on tribal land.
Yes.
And it's really difficult. You have to really get that permission to get in there,
Yes.
and it's actually really hard to get.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
Mhm.
And again, it's now the Amish in Pennsylvania have a completely opposite belief system, but it's about building that relationship though with
yeah,
whether it's the bishop or the people that actually own the land, and
Right.
building that. And they the big thing is you're gonna catch more flies with honey than you are with anything
amen.
else
Right.
with vinegar. So, go out there, be
Yep.
nice, be respectful of them, and you may get a new report coming from just from talking the right way to people. And
What do
again,
we always
people
say?
just
If you
want to be
don't,
they want to be dealt with with respect
Yeah.
and everything. So
if you
Yep.
don't
Yep.
ask, what's the worst they're going to say?
absolutely,
No.
absolutely. So
You got to ask the question first, and you
Yes.
got to
Like,
get
that
in there
lady's
first.
crazy. Do you know what she was just here saying?
yeah. Yep. So
Well, it's been fantastic. This has
absolutely.
been. We could probably go on for hours yet more.
Yes.
which
Oh,
I
absolutely.
hope you come back with us.
I definitely hope so, and I'm hoping in the near future we'll hopefully that first weekend in June, and then
Yeah.
Carrie, I'm going to message Steve on Facebook as soon as I get done and
He's
see if
been
he'd
chit chatting, so he's
Yeah.
watching us right now.
Okay. So
I want to thank everybody that has joined
Yeah.
us tonight and watched the show and/or participated. Again, if any of you have any sightings or anything you want to share with us, feel free to hit us up in our email. It is carcuniversal@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you and maybe even have you on the show. So
Yeah.
make sure you send us your sightings and tell us your stories. And, you never know.
And we'd love to
You never
talk to
know.
you.
Absolutely. We would love it. We would
this
love
was
it.
a blast of an experience. So
Yes, it is. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you again.
all right.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, this is Chuck Larson. You're watching the CARC channel on YouTube.
You've been watching From Behind Tall Trees. a Catskill Appalachian Research Collective production. For more information on this program and others like it, remember to like, share, and subscribe to CARC Universal today. To join the conversation on our Facebook group, become a member of the Catskill Appalachian Research Collective Facebook group. CARC. Relentless.